What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 11. Hopefully, we got some wins week 10 as we continue to quickly move through this season, as always. Waiver wire today. Of course, any other questions that anybody may have. I was trying to get this ticker to work, but it doesn't appear to be working as effectively as I was hoping to. So I might have to just go ahead and hide this. And I'll figure that out moving forward. We'll gloss over or just a general overview and thoughts on top waiver wire ads that are in all likelihood available in your leagues, your 10 and 12 team leagues. Any specific waiver questions that you may have, we will, of course, get to them. Do a little temperature check around the NFL with the latest information, the latest news that we have that is fantasy relevant. And then, of course, any questions that you may have in general, that are generally not start-sit questions. It is Tuesday. Start-sit questions are a bit premature at this point. We just simply don't have all of the information available to us that help make start-sit lineup decisions. There are no games until Thursday. Therefore, there is no lineup to worry about for at least another 48 hours. So we'll be deprioritizing start-sit questions today until we have injury and practice report updates, as is the case with every Tuesday stream. What's going on, Rojo? What's going on, Derek? Good to see you guys. Hopefully we got some dubs week 10. All right, I have my waiver wire list. Again, these are guys that are widely available, probably in over 50% of leagues they are available, which makes them viable for pretty much any league. Could theoretically help sort out any questions that you guys may have as far as who should I look to add, who should I look to drop. And your questions. For week 11, the teams on bye this week are the Arizona Cardinals. So no Kyler, no Marvin Harrison, no James Conner, no Trey McBride. Carolina Panthers, so no Chuba Hubbard, no Xavier Leggett, no trendy tight end one for the end of the season. Jatavian Sanders could be worth a pickup for down the stretch. Caught a touchdown in Munich. Could be a viable tight end stream rest of the season, starting in week 12, but we will not have him as an option this week. The New York Giants are on bye. They are currently evaluating all of their life decisions up to this point. Daniel Jones, I wouldn't be surprised if his tenure in New York was done, and going into week 12, Drew Lock is the starter. That is a speculation, but not anything confirmed. So we'll see what happens there. No Tyrone Tracy, but he is an RB2 for the rest of the year, as is Chuba Hubbard, at least an RB2, possibly an RB1, but we'll see how Jonathan Brooks factors into that backfield. No Malik Neighbors, no Wan'Dale Robinson for the 20-team leagues that were looking for 5 or 6 PPR points. And no Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So no Baker Mayfield, no Rashad White, no Bucky Irving, no Cade Otton. However, we could be getting Mike Evans back as soon as week 12. It sounds like he's on schedule. Of course, that doesn't mean that he will definitely play week 12, but his coming back would be a big boost, not just to the Bucs offense, but to fantasy lineups everywhere, especially with Chris Godwin being done for the season. Cade Otton will remain a high-end tight end one rest of season, regardless of Evans' return. Rashad White and Bucky Irving are looking like you could start both of them rest of season. It might be pulling teeth. It might be gross here and there, but they are getting enough work to warrant starting either one of them moving forward. Those are the teams on bye. What's going on, Greg? Good to see you. I will get to member questions and comments after I go through, quickly go over waivers. This might take about 5 minutes or so, 5 to 7 minutes or so to go over just some top options on the waiver wire ahead of week 11. And then I will get to your questions. Members and supers will be addressed in priority order. You don't have to send a super, but if you are feeling so inclined, that would be a line jumper. After I get to members and supers, I will get to everybody else. So I just appreciate everybody's patience as I work through my news and notes. The top options on the waiver wire this week. We can start at quarterback. There's a good chance that Russell Wilson is still available. Is Russ cooking in Pittsburgh? He hasn't cooked since Seattle. It's been a long time. But Russell Wilson officially looking like he is a viable streaming option in one quarterback leagues for the remainder of the season. You're not going to get the rushing upside that he delivered in Seattle regularly, but he's seemingly, rediscovered some of his talent that looked lost or gone for good in Denver here in his first year with Pittsburgh. And he's got some good matchups coming up. He's got the Baltimore Ravens this week at home. The Baltimore Ravens have a very beatable secondary. So Russ is a decent one quarterback streaming option and a must start in Superflex formats. On the road against Cleveland, tougher matchup by the numbers, and it would be a second straight division game. In fact, I think the Steelers have a decent number of division games coming up on the schedule, which does make things a little tricky for them week to week. They have the Ravens this week, then the Browns, then the Bengals, then the Browns again. So 4 straight division games for Pittsburgh. That is regardless of how good the Browns are or how bad the Browns are or how good or bad the Bengals can be any given week or how good the Ravens are and how good the Steelers have been. We throw anything out, all that stuff out the window any given week when it's a division game. So some tough opponents on the slate just by nature of division opponents, and Baltimore's a good team, and Cincinnati has Joe Burrow. But nevertheless, Russ looking like a solid stream in one quarterback leagues, at least for this week against Baltimore. Drake May, Bo Nix, also perfectly viable one quarterback streams. May obviously deals with the overall substandard collection of talent in New England, not just as the skill position guys, but the offensive line continues to be a major work in progress and something that will likely be a priority for New England to address in the offseason. But May does offer a little bit of rushing upside and looks like he's probably going to be pretty good in general. So there are worse rolls of the dice than a young rookie quarterback who can run. Same can be said for Bo Nix here. Rock solid recently. Good matchups coming up on the schedule outside of a tough matchup against the Chargers defense. But got a good slate of games coming up. So if you're still looking at one quarterback streaming options, if you miss out on Russ, Bo Nix is perfectly viable. At running back, there is one option and one option only. Maybe not one option only, but one that appears to be worth it above the rest. That is Sir Audric Estime, first of his name. We decided in the offseason that we were going to knight Audric Estime based off of his name alone. If you were there for that ceremony, welcome back to the Audric Estime breakout party, so to speak. If you are new to the Audric Estime bandwagon, welcome aboard. Sir Audric Estime, Slayer of Dragons, first of his name, appears to be in line to move forward as maybe the 1A in the Broncos backfield moving forward. Sean Payton alluded to it earlier in the week last week, and it came to fruition. Estime dominated the backfield opportunities this past week for Denver against Kansas City. 14 carries, only 53 rushing yards, and did not corral a target. However, he dominated the opportunities. Javonte Williams got 3 total touches, 7 total opportunities, but only one of those was a carry. 6 were targets, but he only caught 2 of them. So 3 total touches for Javonte Williams this past week. Denver does not seem to have any interest, at least recently, in getting Javonte going as he finishes out a contract year in a team that is, I guess, trending in the right direction, but also figures to be looking to the future. And in just a couple of short years, Javonte Williams appears to not be in the Broncos' long-term plans. Estime figures to get all of the opportunities moving forward ahead of Williams, ahead of Jaleel McLaughlin. He should be, especially if you need running back depth, and we always need running back depth. Audric Estime should be near the top of your priority list this week. I'm putting 10% of my FOB, 10 to 15% of my FOB on him. I'm not breaking the bank because I don't know that he's about to come in and be a league winner or some type of savior for you. However, he is getting the opportunities based on last week, and Sean Payton, the head coach, confirmed moving forward they want to continue to get him opportunities. So Lord Audric Estime, Slayer of Dragons, first of his name, starting running back for the Denver Broncos, it looks like, moving forward. That we can add that to his illustrious long string of nicknames and titles. Hey, Nemo, appreciate you re-upping as a member, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support. Really appreciate that. One of the OGs of this channel. Much appreciated. If you do not get Audric Estime in waivers, I am perfectly fine with he's likely available in your league, and that's Gus Edwards. Made his return from an injured reserve stint. Looked pretty good in the opportunities that he got. 10 carries, 55 rushing yards, over 5.5 yards per carry. That is par for the course for Gus Edwards. He has always been an efficient running back, and in this backfield, in this situation, now that he's healthy, yes, J.K. Dobbins figures to continue to run as the 1A, but again, we're just looking for depth here as we enter the stretch run for the playoffs. Running back depth is as valuable as it gets this time of year because you never know what could happen. Edwards, worthy of adding, throw a couple of FOB bucks on him if you've got a late waiver claim. Maybe you're not going to end up with Estime, but you could use some running back depth. Gus Edwards, not a bad guy to end up with. And he did, he looked good in a matchup against the Tennessee Titans where they've got a pretty good run defense. They've got some good players along their defensive line. So in a tougher matchup, Edwards came through with the opportunities that he got. Expect continued strong efficiency from Edwards moving forward. He is worth a speculative add in 12, 14 team leagues as running back depth. He may have a difficult time finding a roster in a 10-team league, but 12 and 14, he probably needs to be rostered. Those are the big names. The rookies are all making cases for themselves as stashes. They are reemerging as stashes. Blake Corum for the Rams. He's finally running ahead of Ronnie Rivers behind Kyren Williams. So Corum looks like the handcuff once again, the definitive handcuff to Kyren Williams. If you have Kyren and you're looking for running back depth, Blake Corum is widely available. You could pick him up. Again, Braylon Allen continues to see 7 to 10 opportunities per game, really cutting into Breece Hall's opportunities, but Allen is worth a speculative add, especially if you have Breece Hall. Trey Benson has been looking good with the opportunities recently that he has received. He is still definitively behind James Conner, but Benson is absolutely worth a hold if you do, in fact, have Conner. Might be a bit of a difficult time to do so while they are on their bye week, but Benson has been flashing recently, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. At wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, right? Ricky Pearsall, and then I would maybe say the Cleveland guys, which sounds nuts. Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. I'll get to them in a minute. But we will start with Pearsall. He burst onto the scene this past week with his first career touchdown, 7 catches, 59 yards. Now 39 of those yards came on the touchdown catch and run. 4 for 73 against the Bucks, not 7 for 59. That was the first couple of games. 4 for 73. I'm looking at the wrong stat. Sorry. 4 for 73 this past week. For a touchdown as well, including a touchdown. He has to contend with a lot of talent in that 49ers offense, especially with the return of Christian McCaffrey to San Francisco. making his 2024 debut this past week. However, Brandon Ayuk gone for the year. Somebody is going to have an opportunity to step up alongside Deebo Samuel and George Kittle each week. Jawan Jennings also had a nice game, and if he's still available, is absolutely worth a grab along the waiver wire as well. But Ricky Pearsall, the 49ers' first-round pick this year, welcome to the NFL. His first career touchdown, figures to stay involved in this high-powered offense moving forward. Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, the Chargers, after the concerns about potential usage and opportunities in this offense coming into the season, they looked like they were going to be a ground and pound, run type of offense. They have been throwing the ball a little bit more frequently, and Justin Herbert is playing some really good football right now. So his wide receivers are worth a stash in deeper leagues. 14-team leagues is probably what we're looking at for a guy like Josh Palmer. Meanwhile, Quentin Johnston should find a home on rosters in 12-team leagues for sure, and possibly even some 10-team leagues as well. And let me get back to the Cleveland wide receivers. I think both are viable. Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, since Amari Cooper was traded and Jameis Winston was inserted into the starting lineup, I know they were on a bye this past week, the Cleveland Browns were, but Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore have been rock solid since Cooper was traded and Jameis Winston took over for the injured Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback. Jeudy is top 10 in targets. He's top 15 in catches. He's producing. He's getting opportunities now with Cooper out of the picture and Cleveland having some viable, competent quarterback play now that Watson is gone. And I think I'm pretty sure the same can be said for Elijah Moore. Didn't Elijah Moore have he's got 21 targets the past 2 games, Elijah Moore does. So again, if you are looking for wide receiver help, maybe you have Amari Cooper, who has pretty much done nothing since he got to Buffalo. Maybe you have Jalen Waddle, who hasn't done anything all year. Maybe you have who else? Maybe you lost Chris Godwin. Maybe you have Mike Evans, who you're still waiting on. Maybe you had Nico Collins. Other guys that have either been injured or who have underperformed. The Cleveland wide receivers are now suddenly looking. Maybe you have a Bears wide receiver, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. All of these guys who are just impossible to trust right now. The Cleveland wide receivers are getting good volume. They're getting elevated quarterback play than they were to start the year, and now they're past their bye week, and they get the Saints this coming week. The Saints are one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and they just traded one of the few good pieces they have left in Marshawn Lattimore to Washington. And when I say that they had left, it's no longer the case. He's no longer on the team. So the worst get even worse, and that's the Saints defense. Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy are on the dart throw radar in leagues that start 3 wide receivers this week. You could do worse. And then they have matchups the first 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs against the Chiefs and Bengals. Favorable matchups. You could do worse. Finally, at tight end, I'm just going to reiterate what I said off the top. He's on bye this week, so we cannot utilize him. But if you have an open roster spot and you have a need at tight end, maybe you have Dalton Kincaid, who has underperformed this year, and now he's injured. Basically, anybody other than Bowers, Kelsey, Kittle, Cade Otton, consider Jatavian Sanders. Appears to be emerging as a red zone threat for Bryce Young, who has been playing better football of late. And again, Carolina traded Deontay Johnson. They traded Jonathan Mingo. We know what we have in Tommy Tremble. Jatavian Sanders has an opportunity here rest of season to corral a lot of targets, specifically in the red zone. Maybe the Panthers don't get there that frequently. They're still a very much work in progress offense. But if Bryce Young continues to play a little bit better, then they'll have success moving the ball, and that puts Jatavian Sanders in play for some more red zone targets, and he caught yet another touchdown. I think he's got 3 in his past 4 games or 4 in his past 5, something like that. Against the Giants, tough matchup by the numbers in Munich. He came through. You could do worse as a tight end dart throw rest of season, potential tight end 1, low end tight end 1 upside. I think that's everything that I got. So anyone at quarterback, any one of Drake May, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson. At running back, Lord Audric Estime, first of his name, Slayer of Dragons, would be the top guy for me at running back. Probably followed by Gus Edwards, and then double check and see if, like a Tajay Spears or an Alexander Madison are available, or see if Jaylen Warren is still available. He has looked better recently. Figures to get, I think he got 14, 16 opportunities this past week and outperformed Najee Harris, so expect his role to continue to go up. At wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, if he's still out there, he may not be, but if he is, go ahead and put a claim in. The Cleveland wide receivers, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy. Rashad Bateman is another deep league stash. Deontay Johnson has not found any type of footing or rhythm in the Baltimore Ravens offense. And as of right now, in 10 or 12 team leagues, we're approaching drop territory with Deontay Johnson. In 10 team leagues, you can drop him outright. In 12 team leagues, you may want to hold for one more week, but we're approaching that point. Rashad Bateman is probably the guy that is worth rostering over Deontay at this point. And then, again, dart throws, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer in deeper leagues. And then my guy, Jatavian Sanders, as a streaming low-end tight end 1, potentially coming out of the bye week. What's going on, Fortune? What's going on, Nino? Just seeing a couple more members popping in. And again, thank you to Nemo for re-upping as a member. Much appreciated. Time to get to questions and comments. Again, just as a reminder for anybody who's just joining, first of all, welcome in. Thanks for thinking enough to come hang out for a little bit this evening. I will get to member questions and comments first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. If you are not a member of the channel and are interested in getting some priority responses, that'll speed up wait times and all of that good stuff. You can find more details about that in the first link in the description of this live stream and all of the videos and streams on the channel. If you are feeling generous enough to offer a super, you do not have to, but that would also be a line jumper. Get your answer or questions answered a little bit faster. If not, I will get to everybody else. I just ask for some patience as I work through members and supers first. And whether you are a member or not, if you are enjoying the conversation, the dialogue, all that good stuff, I only ask that you like the stream. That helps me out for algorithm purposes. Appreciate that in advance. Let's get it going. Rojo, I remember this all too well. Those guys, respectfully, they made themselves look like clowns, suggesting that, you made a big trade. You made a big trade to get Jamar Chase. You traded multiple picks. I think you traded Darnell Mooney, who has had a nice little renaissance here in Atlanta, but I think it's fair to say there's a big talent gap between him and Jamar Chase. I would talk so much shit if I were you, Rojo, every day, every week at the very least. I would probably post Darnell Mooney in end of first as a comment every day after every win. Yeah, I don't ever want to put another content creator down, but don't put somebody on blast the way that you do and then be wrong. If you're going to blast somebody, you better be right. You better be right about it. Don't be rude to people and be wrong. It's the internet, right? We live in a day and age of social media where people wake up and choose violence on these platforms. But you better be right if you're going to go that route. They were wrong. Rojo, I would take a victory lap every damn day of the week if I were you. What a record since then. They should rename the league to I don't know, in your honor. Just as a man. They should put out different content than what they're currently doing, because what that was doesn't work for them. Respectfully, maybe disrespectfully. Derek, sorry about the rough week. But yeah, there's plenty of time to bounce back. Greg, happy Tuesday. Yeah, I would definitely scoop Jatavian Sanders if you can, and if you don't need him this week, but have the roster flexibility or roster space to add him, I definitely think he's worth a pickup. He figures to be Jatavian Sanders has a decent chance to finish as a low-end tight end 1 for the rest of this season, in my opinion. I think he's going to be solid. Bryce Young is playing better, and they've shipped off multiple weapons in this offense. So that's going to free up targets for everybody that's left. All right. Appreciate it, Rojo. Thank you for the kind words. Greg's got waiver questions. No, if you have Jordan Love coming off of his bye week, you play Jordan Love. He's going, I think, against the Bears. That is a tougher matchup by the numbers, but Jordan Love is just an upper echelon quarterback, and we rock with him. We rock with Jordan Love, unless he's hurt. And I don't believe, coming off the bye week, we'll obviously see what practice reports look like. He suffered a groin injury not too long ago, but hopefully the bye week was enough time for him to rest up and get right. If Jordan Love is healthy, you rock with Jordan Love. And for defense, I think it's is it Houston who's playing the Tennessee Titans this week? Oh no, they're playing Dallas on Monday night. Yeah, I want a piece of that cake. I'll take Houston against the Cowboys if you can get them. The Dak-less Cooper Rush-led Cowboys, who are in complete shambles. I'll take the Houston Texans defense. Yeah. Under Pittsburgh, this is one of those rare occurrences where you don't want to play them when they have to play Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That is an offense that you want to avoid. Houston is a perfectly fine replacement for Pittsburgh. I would definitely play them going against Dallas. And as far as waiver wire options, Greg, I could remind me who. I missed this one. Estime over Dowdle rest of season. They're neck and neck. I think I might still put Rico ahead of Dowdle. I might put Rico ahead of Estime slightly, not a lot. It's not a big gap. Because at least with Denver, they could, in theory, turn to Javonte Williams or Jaleel McLaughlin, who, for whatever it's worth, they still have something left in the tank, whereas the guys behind Rico in Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook have nothing left in the tank. It is a bad offense in all likelihood moving forward, but Rico looked pretty good despite that. We're talking about some RB3s here, maybe low-end RB2s. I would rank one at 22 and one at 23 if I was doing RB rankings. They're neck and neck. They're right next to each other, I would say. And then as far as Dobbs versus some of the other options on the wire, I would probably continue to rock with Dobbs, especially since you have Love. You have a stack, so I would rather just keep rocking with that. If you still have Michael Pittman, though, and you don't have an IR spot, you can move on from him to add, honestly, any one of these guys. I guess I would say Pearsall. I forgot to even bring up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He is absolutely a viable dart throw on the waiver wire as well. He went nuclear this past week to the tune of 2 touchdowns. His floor is 0, though, so that's the only thing. Yes, he's got an expanded opportunity in a depleted Saints wide receiver core rest of season, but this is not a good team. This is not a great offense. He will have his opportunities, but they're going to be inconsistent. That's the only thing with MVS. I would probably keep rocking with Dobbs, but if you still have Michael Pittman and you don't have an IR spot, you can move on from him. What's going on, Fortune? Do I drop Darnold for Bo Nix? Yeah, probably at this point, because Bo Nix will give you rushing production in a way that Slam and Sammy D really doesn't. And Nix has been coming through relative to expectations against some bad defenses or against some in some bad matchups against some good defenses, excuse me. This past week against the Chiefs, not a good matchup by the numbers. And on the road, the rookie completed 22 out of 30, went over 200 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He went for negative rushing yardage this past week. I don't know if some of that were sacks or scrambling and behind the line of scrimmage or kneel downs or anything like that. But 3 out of his 4 games prior to that, he cleared 30 yards rushing. And in 2 of those games, he cleared 60 yards rushing. So, I mean, Nix has like a floor of 20 to 30 rushing yards any given week. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Darnold has run a little bit here and there, but not as much as Nix has. Darnold has 2 games with over 30 rushing yards. Nix has 5? Yeah, 5. Yeah, I'll take Nix over Darnold. I'll take Nix over Darnold. And then Rojo, I don't even know who the Falcons play this week. I admittedly am not all the way caught up on my matchups. Mooney's been money, but he gets the Denver Broncos on the road this week, so that's a slightly tougher matchup. Montgomery, Detroit gets Jacksonville. Oy, probably Montgomery. That is a run funnel of a Jags pass defense. And, not to gloss over start-sit questions, but as you know, Rojo, I like to definitively sort out start-sit questions later in the week when we have practice information. So obviously, if either one of these guys are on the injury report, that's going to downgrade them a little bit. But in a vacuum, I would probably take Montgomery. Let's see how things shake out this week. But he's a touchdown scoring machine. And against this defense, the Jags defense, yeah, I'll take a guy like Monty. Let's see, Greg. I would pick up Sanders over Ferguson. I would pick up Jatavian Sanders. You're going to play Hawkinson this week. You're not going to play Ferguson after what we saw from Cooper Rush this past Sunday. You can pick up Sanders for Ferguson. I'm good with that. Play Hawkinson this week. I forget who the Vikings have. Maybe they're the team that's playing the Titans. I think that's a slightly better matchup by the numbers. Yes. Yeah. Play Hawkinson this week, but Jatavian Sanders, man, coming out of the bye week, the Panthers get the Chiefs and the Bucks. Those are 2 of the best matchups for opposing tight ends on the season. The Chiefs definitely are, and the Bucks have been getting gashed through the air by everybody in every which way. Those are 2 excellent matchups for Sanders to get the ball rolling on the end of his season to finish his rookie campaign strong. Weeks 12 and 13, Sanders is on the streaming radar. Yes, I would pick him up for Ferguson because we're not playing Ferguson this week anyway, and I would rather play Sanders week 12 than Ferguson, given the matchup. Nino, you got a trade question. Do I prefer Mooney and Reed or Neighbors? Neighbors could be getting a new quarterback soon if Drew Lock is the Giants starter coming out of the bye week, which if you pay attention to, or if you've listened to what the Giants have been saying in their press conferences since they lost to Carolina in the Germany game and now they're on their bye week, it sounds like they might be done with Danny Dimes as their starting quarterback. That sounds like it. The writing appears to be on the wall. That looks like it's over. And I guess it's possible that he comes back out of the bye week and still plays, but at this point, why? What would that even accomplish? He's not good. The team is not good with him as their quarterback. What incentive do they have to continue to move forward with him when they are on a collision course with a top 3 pick in the 2025 draft? Well, they surely will be in contention to take one of Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward, one of the top quarterback prospects, appears to be headed to the Giants in 2025. That will spell the end of Daniel Jones. So that could be good for Neighbors. I guess there might be some more catchable targets. I mean, we've seen him thrive with Danny Dimes in there throughout this season. So he could just be a quarterback-proof guy. Mooney and Reed. Mooney's been a stud this year. Reed has been a roller coaster. The highs have been awesome. The lows have been disappointing. If you start 2 wide receivers, I might say no to this, and I would just keep rocking with Neighbors. But if you start 3 receivers, I'm a little bit more into this because Mooney and Reed are then factor in as weekly starters for you, as opposed to trading for a guy who spends a lot of his time on the bench for your team, depending on the makeup of your league's starting lineup. If you start 3 receivers, I think I'm okay with this. Neighbors has been incredible, but Mooney has been really good this year. Plus, you'd be adding Jaden Reed as if Jaden Reed is just some fill-in. He's way better than a fill-in. He's just been a little inconsistent this year. But now the team has passed their bye week. Love is healthy, presumably. Reed figures to remain the Packers' top receiving threat, 4 targets on a week-to-week basis. If you start 3 receivers, Nino, then I'm okay with the Mooney-Reed side. But if you only start 2, I might want to just consolidate the talent and make it easier for me to figure out my lineup decisions each week and just keep rocking with Neighbors after their bye week, of course. So it depends on your starting lineup makeup. And Nemo has a question. Pickens, McLaurin, Sutton, we're starting to. So McLaurin does play on Thursday night. He will see a revamped Eagles secondary that has been playing really well recently. Pickens has been a stud since Russ has been inserted as the Steelers starting quarterback. So I think you have to start Pickens. And then the Broncos get the Falcons. I'm gonna need a little bit of time, Nemo, to think between McLaurin and Sutton. And hopefully you can come back on Thursday before kickoff, and we can figure out a definitive answer. I might actually lean Sutton over McLaurin. McLaurin is good enough to come through in bad matchups, and this is not a good matchup by the numbers. The Eagles secondary has been playing quite well recently. Plus, it's a Thursday short week, and he's the player. He's on the road. He's a part of the road team. So I just don't like that as much. Even the best players, you downgrade a little bit in those situations. I'm inclined to say Sutton and Pickens, Nemo. If you can, come back on Thursday, and I can give you a more definitive answer going into the game. But because you have good viable options, McLaurin for me is not a must start given the circumstances. Short week, on the road, bad matchup by the numbers. But Pickens, I would definitely start. He has been a wide receiver 1 since Russ was inserted into the starting lineup. Okay, those are the member questions that I have. Let me go ahead and jump back up to the top. Appreciate everybody's patience. I have everybody's question. I promise I will get to them. Starting again from the top of the comments, the chat. Let's see. How droppable are these players? And what's up, Bobby? You're not a member, and that's okay. But you've sent supers before, and I appreciate that. So you definitely are welcome to a shout out. How droppable is anybody of Jordan Mason and Javonte Williams and pick up Estime? Javonte Williams is droppable. I don't know that I would drop Jordan Mason yet. Just because let's see how McCaffrey does over the next couple of weeks. If he continues to dominate the work, Mason will be in the drop category if you don't have McCaffrey. But for one more week, I will keep Mason. Javonte is perfectly fine to drop for any one of these guys. And I would just say go ahead and take the guy that appears to be taking his job. Take Aldrick Estime. I would grab Estime and drop Javonte. That is perfectly fine. Javonte got 3 touches this past week. 7 opportunities. He had 6 targets, but he only caught 2 of them, and he only had 1. He had 1 carry the whole game. That is insane. It is a little sad to see Javonte's fall from grace. I was so high on him coming out of college. Loved him after his rookie season, during his rookie season. Suffered that bad knee injury. Has worked his way back, but might have lost some explosiveness with that injury, and now appears to be on his way out in Denver. And I guess, we're looking at a potential situation where Javonte is trying to latch on with a new backfield in 2025. But Estime figures to be taking that job. You can just drop Javonte for Estime. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. The rest of the squad looks solid. The rest of the squad looks very solid, especially with Calvin Ridley's recent reemergence. He is an every week starter for you, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis as the starting quarterback. I was worried about Ridley this past week because Will Levis stinks, but it turns out it didn't matter. They traded DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley has liftoff for the rest of this season. So good that you stuck with him. You're going to need somebody this week to replace Trey McBride. I would not pick up Marshawn Lloyd, but I would drop Javonte to pick up Estime, and then you might be able to get away with dropping Christian Watson to pick up a backup tight end for this week until McBride comes back after week 11. But the rest of the squad looks pretty strong. Let's see. I got a lot of member questions off the bat. Appreciate all you guys. Appreciate the support of the channel. And we can move right to the tight end replacement for McBride this week. I like Gesicki. I like Gesicki just being attached to Joe Burrow. I know he didn't catch it. He didn't follow up his monster performance week 9 with anything special week 10. I think he had like 4 for 50 or something like that. Or no, it wasn't 4 for 50. It was like 4 for 40. I think he got around like 5 half PPR points. It wasn't a lot. But I like that he's attached to Burrow. Dawson Knox is interesting because the Kansas City Chiefs are a funnel against opposing tight ends specifically. And Dalton Kincaid is dealing with a knee injury. So Dawson Knox, you probably don't even need to spend any FOB, or you probably don't even need to put a claim in for Dawson Knox. You can let waivers clear and just pick him up later, like at some point tomorrow. If we get news that Dalton Kincaid is in fact going to play for Buffalo later this week, then we can just drop Knox and pick up another one of these guys. The nice thing this week, if you are somebody impacted by bye weeks, specifically with tight end, again, the tight ends on bye this week are Trey McBride, Cade Otton, Jatavian Sanders, and Theo Johnson. So all that to say, there's not a lot of people this week who need a tight end. So if you have McBride or Otton, you probably don't need to use any type of waiver priorities on tight end this week. You can just grab one after waivers clear for free tomorrow or Thursday if your league does Thursday waivers. Some leagues do that. But I would take a look at Knox. It's a great matchup against the Chiefs, and Dalton Kincaid is dealing with a knee injury. It's an extreme dart throw, but it's only a 1-week dart throw before you can just put McBride back in starting in week 12. So I would take a look at Dawson Knox. And then rest of season, this is the way you have them listed out is how I would rank them. I would put Sanders first. I would put Gesicki second. I would put Davis Allen third. And I would put Theo Johnson fourth. Maybe Davis Allen is fourth because healthy Cooper Kupp, healthy Puka Nacua, they're going to dominate the targets. Plus Colby Parkinson is still, hanging around doing whatever it is that he's doing. But I would rather have Jatavian Sanders. There are not as many proven weapons ahead of him in the passing game. It is Xavier Leggett, it is Jalen Coker, and that's it. And David Moore, right? David Moore is on the Panthers now. Yeah, I mean, Deontay gone, Mingo gone, Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas. These are not like long-term solutions for the Panthers at tight end. Jatavian Sanders might be. Yeah, I would rank them in the order that you listed them out: Sanders, Gesicki, Allen, then Theo. Trade question. You can offer Brian Thomas or Waddle and Dowdle for, is that Brian Robinson? I assume it's Brian Robinson because Waddle and Dowdle is not enough for like Bijan Robinson. I'm okay with Waddle and Dowdle. I would prefer to keep Brian Thomas, although, do we have any updates on Trevor Lawrence and his potential return to play? Man, he could. It is so like what I'm seeing online. Nothing is definitive. Nothing is definitive with Trevor Lawrence. But it sounds like the possibility exists that he could miss the rest of the season, which would kill Brian Thomas. It would completely submarine his value. We saw that happen this past week with Mac Jones, who is not good. I guess at least with Waddle, he has a chance. Waddle has had a forgettable season. Hasn't had a good week since week 1. And even then, he was only like a decent wide receiver 2. He's been a wide receiver 3 or 4. I know Tua got hurt. But in the game since Tua has returned, Waddle's been a boring wide receiver 3 that is basically not playable. The thing with Waddle is at least he has his quarterback back for now anyway, but we know that Tua is playing football for Miami. We do not know if Trevor Lawrence is going to suit up for Jacksonville again this year. If he does, then Brian Thomas retains value as being a stud, being awesome. But if he doesn't, he's going to have a really hard time dealing with Mac Jones playing quarterback or attempting to play quarterback. So that makes him a little bit more difficult to trust. If you can get off of Brian Thomas and Dowdle for Brian Robinson, yeah, I would do that. I would do that. Because Rico is in a bad situation as well. This Cowboys offense is not going to be good for the rest of the year. Let's see. I got my member questions. I'm moving on down to the bottom of the chat very quickly today. And if I am moving too quickly, or if you don't feel like I gave enough of an answer to your question, feel free to let me know. Like if you want me to expand on anything, if you feel like I maybe glossed over anything too quickly or didn't give enough context, let me know and I can follow up. Because I am moving right along at this particular moment. The Tuesday streams are always a little lighter. You guys know what your team needs better than I do, and how likely it is that you're going to be, how active you'll be any given week on the waiver wires. But still good to go over this stuff and make sure that we have the best course of action as we go into week 11, because we are in the stretch run. The fantasy playoffs are not far away. Maybe 4 more weeks for your matchup or for your league. So it's crunch time, and finding those key pieces on the waiver wire to get you through this next stretch will be critical. You were offered Jacobs and Pitts for Cook. And you're currently... So you would acquire Jacobs and Pitts for James Cook, and you currently have Mike Gesicki as your tight end. I think I would take that. I think Cook has been really good. But you would be getting Jacobs, who has been perfectly fine, has started scoring touchdowns since Jordan Love made his return to the lineup. And it's a good offense, and now he's past his bye week. And then Pitts, he didn't have a good week this past week, but he has showed signs of life over the past month and has been a viable option at tight end that you can feel pretty good about. So on a per game basis, Cook has been the RB10 in scoring. Jacobs has been the RB21. But he's been a lot better recently. Jacobs has. And now he's past his bye week. Cook, on the other hand, I believe the Bills' bye week is like week 12. It's a late one. It hasn't happened yet. So you would be moving out from underneath Cook's bye week. You'd be picking up Jacobs, who has not been as effective as Cook on a per week basis. Cook is a low end RB1 on the season so far. But Jacobs isn't that far back. Isn't that far behind him as far as his output this year. And now he's past his bye week. And you're getting an upgrade at tight end going from Gesicki to Pitts. I think I would take this. I think I would take this offer. Yeah, I think I would take this. You have Walker, you have Rashad White, you have Dobbins. You add Jacobs and you upgrade at tight end. Yeah, I would take that. I would take that deal. I would. Rest of season, Brian Thomas or Calvin Ridley. Ridley, hands down. I mean, like I just mentioned, we don't even know if Trevor Lawrence is going to play again this year. And if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play again, and it's Mac Jones the rest of the way for Jacksonville, that whole offense is in the toilet. That whole offense is in the toilet. Ridley, he delivered this past week with Will Levis as his quarterback. So we officially feel good about Ridley moving forward, regardless of who the quarterback is. I was worried about him because Will Levis has not been good, but he was good enough to get Ridley the ball this past week. And with DeAndre Hopkins firmly out of the picture and Ridley kind of reestablishing himself as still a strong top flight talent at the receiver position in the NFL, the quarterbacks that the Titans have should be good enough to get him the ball, whereas we don't know if Lawrence is going to play again this year, and Mac Jones stinks, so that hurts Brian Thomas. Ridley for sure, and I would say Otten for sure over Hawkinson. Hawkinson is probably like a middle-of-the-pack tight end one rest of the way. Maybe you rank him around the tight end 6, 7, or 8, somewhere around there. I wouldn't put him ahead of Bowers. I wouldn't put him ahead of Kittle. I wouldn't put him ahead of Kelsey, and I wouldn't put him ahead of Otten. Otten is in that upper echelon select group. I guess Mark Andrews might be back up there as well. Moving forward, it's that those are the names. It's Kelsey, it's Andrews, it's Kittle, it's Otten, and it's and Trey McBride and Bowers. Trey McBride and Bowers, I would still put ahead of those. I would put ahead of Hawkinson. So you're tight end 6, tight end 7, tight end 8. He's like a middle of the pack tight end 1. Otten is a top 5 tight end rest of season. Godwin is out for the year. Evans is coming back after week 11, presumably, but, are they going to will they ease him back in? Even if they do, and he gets up to full strength or full speed by week 14 or so, I mean, that all that does is take pressure off of Otten. Otten over Hawkinson for sure. And Baker Mayfield is playing out of his mind. I know that they didn't win this past week. They played a tough 49ers team who got McCaffrey back. Baker Mayfield is playing some of the best ball of his career, especially for fantasy purposes. He has been killing it. Darnold, on the other hand, has not looked good recently. So Ridley for sure over Brian Thomas, and Otten for me for sure over TJ Hawkinson. And I would pick up Herbert. I would pick up Herbert. Herbert's been playing well. Not that Stafford hasn't, but he, he's a little bit more prone to down fantasy weeks. Like last night, he was, I think he had like 290 passing yards, but he threw an interception, didn't throw a touchdown, and has been a little lackluster this year in the fantasy production department anyway. I would go Herbert. He's scored right around 20 fantasy points the past 2 weeks, and then the week before that, in week 8, he had 24 fantasy points. So Herbert, past 3 weeks, 24, 19.5, 19.8 fantasy points. They are throwing the ball more. There's nothing super scary about his schedule. Yeah, I'll say Herbert. I'll say Herbert over Stafford. I'll say Herbert over Stafford. Let's see. And then you could just drop Herbert because you have Josh Allen once he's past his bye week. Would I trade away McCaffrey and Rico for Nico Collins and Josh Jacobs? You have Pollard. You would have James Conner, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. So it's like, on one hand, your backfield now is McCaffrey, Rico Dowdle, and James Conner, and Tony Pollard. That's pretty good with Dowdle as your RB4. Your new backfield would be James Conner, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. But you would have Nico as a big upgrade over Quentin Johnston. I would prefer this if you could get away with just trading McCaffrey for Nico and Josh Jacobs and keeping Rico Dowdle. McCaffrey is that type of dude where the name recognition plus the fact that he made his return this past week and his first game, he did Christian McCaffrey things, right? 100 scrimmage yards, ho-hum. I would try to trade McCaffrey. I mean, if you're going to try to do, I don't mind the idea of getting a big upgrade at wide receiver. Do you really have to trade Rico as well, or could you try to hang on to him and keep your running back depth like pretty diverse and stout? If you could do McCaffrey for Nico and Jacobs, I don't think that's an unfair ask. And then you could drop, if Quentin Johnston is the last guy on your bench, then you could drop him. But to get the big upgrade at wide receiver while still maintaining strong running back depth, I feel like McCaffrey is that type of name where you could try to haggle and get the 2 for 1 and keep Rico, who isn't great and is probably going to be difficult to trust for the rest of the season. But he remains running back depth, and you never know when you could end up potentially starting any type of running back depth. If you can keep Rico, then I'm okay with the trade. Otherwise, though, I have a little bit of pause. I do still like the heavy wide receiver upgrade, but you held McCaffrey for this long. Kind of want to see how that just shakes out. I don't necessarily want to get rid of him so soon. Now that especially now that he's back. And then again with Pollard might lose work to a healthy Tajay Spears. So I want to maintain the running back depth. Yeah. And if you're nervous about making a trade, and I know it's easy for me to say, but if you're nervous about giving a guy up, then don't give him up. Keep the guy that you've been rocking with to this point and want to believe in. Yeah, and especially a guy like McCaffrey, you held him for this long. Don't want, I can't bring myself, if I held McCaffrey for this long, I don't know if I could bring myself to let somebody else enjoy a healthy Christian McCaffrey. If I held, I kind of just want to let's ride this gravy train. I would maybe try to use your other running backs. I would try to use Pollard or Rico and get a slightly, it's not going to be as good of a wide receiver as Nico Collins, but maybe get a different wide receiver who's a tier or two below him. Maybe try to do that instead. Try to keep McCaffrey, but put any one of Connor or Rico or Pollard on the block and see if you could do a 1-for-1 swap where you get a wide receiver that's an upgrade over Quentin Johnston. I would think that can be done. I would think that can be done. Yep. Yeah, I mean, McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey he was on the field for 88% of the team's snaps, handled all but 2 running back opportunities. Yeah, man, I would just keep McCaffrey. If you have Christian McCaffrey, this goes for anybody. I'm just going to kind of blanket statement say don't trade him. Unless you get 2 bona fide slam dunk studs. I would just keep him. And I would sink or swim with that ship. I think if you have Christian McCaffrey, for anybody who has him, held on to him through the injuries or acquired him at some point over the course of the season with the intent of holding and stashing him for your playoff run, I would just keep him. Because when healthy, Christian McCaffrey is one of the guys on one hand that you can count that has RB1 overall upside. Now, he's obviously not going to finish as an RB1 on the season in all likelihood, although I guess he is certainly capable of going on some monster mammoth production stretch over these last 6 or 7 weeks in the season. He's not going to finish as an RB1, but he has any given week from here on out overall RB1 upside, along with Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, I guess maybe like a Kyron Williams, and Bijan. And, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, I'll put Kamara in there. He's been incredible. Henry, Saquon, Kamara, Bijan Robinson, and then Christian McCaffrey. And those are the 5, and Jahmyr Gibbs, I guess, right? And then those are the guys where it's they could finish as an overall RB1, not just any given week, but on the season. McCaffrey's is on that short list. I would just keep him. Let's see. Texans or Dolphins defense this week. The Dolphins get the Raiders at home. That's pretty enticing. Although I will say the Raiders are coming off of their bye week, and the Dolphins are coming off of a short week. And while they're, not that I expect the Raiders to to blow the doors off. But the Dolphins defense is solid, but as a team, they haven't been very good. I know that, again, Tua missed time, so that's why their record looks like the way that it does. But the Raiders are coming off their bye week, well rested, and the Dolphins had to play on Monday night. That's a pretty significant difference in rest since their respective previous games. So I would probably take Houston because they still have a good matchup. They're playing the Cowboys. Dak is done for the year. Cooper Rush looked awful against the Eagles. And Dallas looks like they're just headed in a downward spiral for the rest of the year. I prefer Houston. I personally prefer Houston as a defensive stream this week. Houston would be number one. Miami's up there, but again, 14 days off versus like 6 days off. The Raiders are going to have, 14 days between games, and the Dolphins will have 6. So I don't like that as much, to be completely honest with you. So I would put Houston 1. The Rams are up there against the New England Patriots, although, again, they are coming off of a short week and then having to travel east for an early game. So I don't love that. The Packers are a good defense. They're playing the Bears. You're going to want to fire up defenses against the Chicago Bears rest of season. They don't look good right now. I know they just fired their offensive coordinator, but it's been ugly for Caleb Williams and that Bears offense. The offensive line looks bad. The skill position guys aren't contributing or helping at all, and Caleb himself does not look good. He looks lost out there. So the Packers are a perfectly good defensive stream to add. And then I guess Miami. I'll end the list there. Houston, Rams, Packers. Miami's up there, but again, I don't like the amount of time off between games between these two teams. I do not think I would recommend Miami. I can recommend Houston, though. I'm at the end of the chat. If nobody needs anything else tonight, I can maybe go ahead and shut this down, but appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out for a little bit of time tonight. Appreciate that. Special shout out as always to my members. I saw Rojo, I saw Derek, I saw Greg, I saw Nino, I saw Nemo re-up as a member. Appreciate that. And I saw Fortune. So appreciate all you guys. What's going on, MVM? Good to see you. What do we got? You're not late. You're just on time. Let's see. You have okay. You're 4-6. So obviously the having a losing record isn't fun, but I have to imagine you're still in the playoff race with that record, so you'll be okay. You're all right. Let's see. You have Kyron Williams, so that would be Corum. Achane would be Jalen Wright or Mostert. Brooks is the handcuff to Chuba Hubbard right now. Tracy, don't worry about. I'm not worried about Singletary. I'm not worried about Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook for Dowdle. You don't need Taysom Hill because you have Kelsey. You can drop Taysom Hill for maybe Corum. You could grab Corum if you want. But you have Jaden Daniels. You have good options at wide receiver. It's unfortunate that this team is 4-6 because you have good pieces. I would, if Corum is available, MVM, I would pick up Corum and drop Taysom Hill because you have Kelsey. You don't need another tight end, and the Chiefs are past their bye week, so Kelsey's your starting tight end rest of season. Like, you're not going to take him out. So yeah, you could pick up Corum for Taysom Hill. That's totally fine. Everybody else, no. Achane, nah. I'll rock with Achane. Brooks is the handcuff, and Chuba's obviously rostered somewhere. I don't want Singletary. I don't want Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook. Yeah, you could pick up Corum and drop Taysom Hill. That works. That works. Theo, you are appreciate you popping in. But I can stick around. I'm hanging out. I got nowhere to be. I'm hanging out as long as anybody needs anything. But appreciate you coming in. Olave Dynasty price check. I'm selling, man. I'm selling. It sucks because I know Chris Olave is talented. I know he's good. But he just suffered his 5th documented concussion. I'm not trying to make any jokes here, or I'm not trying to like insinuate anything, but like, Olave is basically in the Tua Tagovailoa camp right now as far as accumulated concussions. We are worried about them on every single play that they take the field, that their next hit will be their last hit. Like, this is the ticking time bomb that unfortunately comes with playing football. And some players are fortunate and they have injury-free careers for the most part. Some are not as lucky. Some are not as fortunate. Chris Olave has been racking up, and when it's head injuries, that's a whole new ball game, or not new, but whole different angle of how tricky it can be. I would not want Chris Olave on a rebuild or on a contending team. I would look to move off of him if you can, for whatever your team needs. If you're a contender, try to send Olave to a rebuilding team who is, maybe they want to roll the dice on him and they're willing to wait him out because he's on injured reserve right now, and see, if you can get another player that helps you for your playoff push now. If you are a rebuilding team, you're probably not going to, I don't know if you're going to get a first-round pick for Chris Olave, but you could try. In one quarterback leagues, I think that's viable. In Superflex leagues, a first-round pick is probably going to be too much to ask. But if you could get a couple second-round picks in a rebuild, or a second-round pick and an intriguing young player for Chris Olave, I would do it. He might go on a run after this, after he comes back and he continues to be a low-end wide receiver 1 or a top 20 option any given week. It's just, the concussions have accumulated really quickly for Chris Olave, and it makes his long-term playing status something that we have to put in question. On top of that, we still have, I think, a couple more years of Derek Carr as the Saints quarterback. The team does have an out after this year, but I believe if they exercise that out, they would have like a dead cap hit of around $60 million, which, if I'm not mistaken, would be like one of the, if not the highest dead cap hits in the history of the league. So they're not going to move off of Derek Carr, who is not good and doesn't even seem to really like throwing to Chris Olave all that much. And when he does throw it to him, he's throwing him hospital balls that get him knocked out of the game. I don't want Chris Olave in Dynasty for all of these reasons. It has nothing to do with his talent. I know he's good. You don't have to, nobody's, you're not going to hear any argument from me from anything that other than Chris Olave is good at football. But what do the rest of his playing days look like? If he stays in New Orleans, he's probably tied to bad quarterback play for at least another 2 or 3 years. And he has suffered 5 documented concussions, probably way more undocumented ones. I'm worried about him. I'm worried about him, and I wouldn't want him. And it has nothing to do with how good he is, because I know how good he is. He's a good football player. It has everything to do with everything else. His medical record and the team as a whole. I don't want Chris Olave in Dynasty. I want out. I want to get off of Chris Olave in Dynasty. I want to move off of him. I want to move him to somebody if I'm a contender for another piece that helps me now. And if I'm a rebuilding team that happens to have him, I want to move him for picks or young players or some combination of the two. Yes, MVM, it is good. You're fine to do that. The Texans are the top, for me, the top streaming defense this week, going against the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys that couldn't get anything going against the Philadelphia Eagles this past week. Rush had 45 passing yards on like 23 attempts. How the hell do you average 2 yards per attempt as an NFL quarterback? And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say stuff like that as an armchair quarterback, but I'm sorry, man. You're a professional quarterback. How do you average 2 yards per pass attempt? Holy hell, man. Yes, I would like to I'll take the Houston Texans defense. And I will fire them up with plenty of confidence this week. Yeah, I'll take Houston over pretty much anybody other than your typical stalwarts on defense. Although I'm not even playing, I would play them over Pittsburgh this week because Pittsburgh gets Baltimore. So I wouldn't want to play the Steelers defense this week. I would play Houston over probably almost anybody. I don't want to play the Chiefs defense this week. They're on the road against Buffalo. So yeah, I would play the Texans probably over damn near anybody. Yep. Yep. And should you pick up Lord Aldrich Estime, Slayer of Dragons, first of his name? I think so, if there's room. How many receivers do you start, MVM? Because you have Nico coming back. Drake London, Cortland Sutton are guys that can regularly fill a wide receiver 2 spot. And then if you do start 3 receivers, Jennings, Dobbs, Worthy, Leggett, all viable options. If you only start 2 receivers, yeah, I would pick up Estime for either one of Leggett or Worthy. I don't mind more running back depth. I'm okay with that. Or if you want to forego picking up Corum and drop and just drop Taysom Hill for Estime to maintain your wide receiver depth, I'm fine with that too. I'm okay with that as well. And forego Corum. Because Estime, I think, is worthy, is a better running back stash as of right now for fantasy purposes than Corum is. Because Estime looks like the starter. Lord Audric Estime. We knighted him before the season because we thought his name was cool, and now he is the Broncos RB1 in addition to being a Slayer of Dragons. All hail Lord Audric Estime. Long may he reign. Yeah, he's going to be the Broncos starting running back moving forward. I'm perfectly fine with picking him up. Yep. Audric Estime is probably in one quarterback leagues, probably my favorite waiver wire ad this week. If you can get Estime, he's probably the number one waiver wire ad, unless you have a dire need at somewhere else at quarterback or wide receiver or tight end. If you don't, I would say Estime is the number one waiver claim this week. You can start him theoretically in deeper leagues. The Broncos get the Atlanta Falcons at home this week. That's a good spot. That's a good spot for our Lord and Slayer of Dragons, Audric Estime. I would expect him to slay some Falcons this weekend as the Broncos starting running back at home. Yeah, you can start Estime this week if you dealing with bye weeks or injuries. If you're desperate, you could start him. He got 14 carries last week in a bad matchup. It's a much better matchup this weekend, and he's at home. Yeah, I like Estime this week. Yeah. Estime, if you need a running back, if you miss on Estime and you're not looking to handcuff any rookies, then Gus Edwards is a perfectly viable grab off of waivers. If any one of Jalen Warren or Tajay Spears are available, they're perfectly fine as pickups to fill out your running back depth. That's where I would go. Estime, Gus Edwards. And then if they're a little bit more highly rostered at this point, but if they're still available, Jalen Warren, Tajay Spears, perfectly fine running back pickups this week. But Estime, I would put number one. Estime, I would put number one. Okay. I don't see any other questions at the moment. If nobody needs anything else, I can wrap this up. But I will keep it open for a little bit longer if anybody has any last minute questions or thoughts that they want to run by me. I will, as always, be live Thursday ahead of Thursday Night Football. Should be a good one between the Eagles and the Commanders. First place on the line in the NFC East. So if anybody needs anything before the Thursday Night Football game, I will be live at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then, as always, start-sit streams on the weekend. Sunday streams are back for the remainder of the season now that the international games are complete. Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern will be available and to everybody, will be open to the public. Sunday streams, the chat will be limited to members only. So if you are not a member, but you are looking for any last-minute thoughts or help on Sunday morning, you will need to join as a channel member to get any questions or thoughts in the Sunday morning streams. I'll kick those off sometime between 11 and 11:30 Eastern time before the slate, before the Sunday slate. So Saturday still open to everybody. Members will, of course, continue to get priority responses in any public streams, and supers will, of course, be line jumpers as well. Sunday will exclusively be for the members. So if you are a member and you would like to join the Sunday streams, you're golden. Don't worry, do nothing. But if you would like any last minute thoughts or help Sunday morning, you will need to join as a channel member moving forward for the rest of the season. Just had to get that little tidbit out of there. I will finish things off with, I guess, like the most recent updates that we have. As far as player availability, again, Dak Prescott is set to undergo season-ending surgery tomorrow. He will not return. The Cowboys' season is in the toilet. Rico Dowdle is now an RB3. CeeDee Lamb is more of a high-end RB2 or a wide receiver 2 than a bona fide wide receiver 1 with poor quarterback play rest of the year. Jalen Tolbert can be dropped in shallow leagues. Jake Ferguson can probably be dropped in shallow leagues for somebody like a Jatavian Sanders, who will not play this week, but looks to have a strong opportunity rest of season starting in week 12 after the Panthers come out of their bye week. For Thursday Night Football, Brian Robinson is practicing for Washington, so it's possible he makes his return after missing a couple of games, but it would be a tough matchup on a short week, and he would be difficult to trust in that scenario. Isaiah Pacheco's 21-day practice window was opened earlier today, so the Chiefs have a few more weeks to decide if Pacheco can make a return that would presumably be in December. If he is not able to do so, he will revert back to injured reserve and miss the remainder of the Chiefs' season. But the practice window being opened is a positive sign for Pacheco to return probably sometime in December, right in time for the fantasy playoffs. So that surely will make things fun and easy going as far as setting lineups for anybody who has Pacheco in the playoffs. And Nico Collins, we were hoping that he would make his return on Sunday Night Football this past week against the Detroit Lions. He unfortunately was inactive, but he is expected to practice all this week and make his return week 11, Monday night against the Cowboys. Volume could be an issue in that game, but it's Nico Collins, and he has ascended this year to that part of the conversation where we don't think twice about it. If Nico Collins is healthy, regardless of the situation and the matchup, he is in our starting lineup. So hopefully we get Nico Collins back this week. But doesn't appear to be anything else tonight. If you guys miss me, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the form of a comment on this stream, and I will be sure to get to it. I'll put some other stuff out this week ahead of Thursday. If you guys need anything leading up to the Thursday night game, again, I will be available on 6 p.m. Eastern, and then again, of course, on the weekends for start sit help. And if you need access to me during the week, you can join my Discord. Second link in the description of this live stream and all of the videos and streams on this channel. It is an evergreen invite. Members will get a little bit more priority access to me and a little bit more frequent access to me in the Discord as well. If you join for free, that is totally fine. But that's going to be more for crowdsourcing, and I'll be available maybe Sunday game days, and it's going to be sporadic otherwise. Let's see. I say got one question just popped in. Is this a start question or a start sit question, or is this a pickup question? I mean, I like Estime against the Denver Broncos if you can get him or if you already have him. And then Lockett, we got to see what DK Metcalf's status is coming into this week. If you are able to return either Thursday or Saturday, because none of these guys play in the Thursday night game, so we don't have to worry about that. We need to see the practice reports for Seattle. Is DK Metcalf going to be healthy coming out of the bye week, or is Lockett going to potentially line up as a full-time top 2 receiver for Seattle in their Week 11 matchup? I like Estime against the Falcons. I would tentatively fire him up. Spears and Ray Davis are intriguing stashes, but not guys that I'm ready to start. Especially Spears in a tough matchup against the Vikings with Pollard still healthy. Tentatively Lockett and Estime, but that answer may change depending on the status and availability of DK Metcalf and Lockett himself. So we got to see what the practice reports look like this week before we make a definitive call, but I do like Estime. For sure. He is now what appears to be the Broncos starting running back, and he's got a good matchup against the Atlanta Falcons at home. Nothing scary about that matchup. So tentatively Lockett and Estime. If you can come back later in the week, I would encourage you to, when we have practice reports and injury statuses and all that, and we can make a little bit more of a definitive call. See if there's any more last minute updates for today before we shut it down. And Brian Robinson declared about an hour ago that he has I think I have a great chance of playing. That is a direct quote. Oops, just lost my earbud. That is a direct quote from Brian Robinson. He thinks he has a great chance of playing. That might be a situation where you have to fire him up. However, that is not a good matchup. It's not a good spot. Short week on the road. But Robinson has done enough this year and recently, plus the ability of this offense where it's possible you have to go to him. So good news for Brian Robinson's availability this week. Whether he is startable is another conversation. All right. I think that's it. I think that's all we got for tonight. Appreciate you guys again, everybody coming in, spending some time tonight, thinking enough to come hang out for a little bit. Appreciate you guys. I'll see about what I can put together for you guys for this week on the channel for your viewing / consuming pleasure. And then again, I will be live this Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, ahead of TNF. If you have start-sit questions for Eagles Commanders, bring them then. We will get those sorted out. We can start looking at start-sit questions in general on Thursday because we'll have 2 days worth of practice reports to dissect and figure out what to do there. And then, of course, AMA, as I always hold. But that'll do it for me tonight. Appreciate you guys. Best of luck with waiver wires. Again, just one more rapid fire. Audric Estime, grab him if he's available. He looks like he's a starting running back rest of season. I like other running backs I like that are likely available. Gus Edwards for depth. Tajay Spears for depth. Jalen Warren might still be out there. He's decent for depth. Any one of those guys. At wide receiver, I'll take anyone. Of Ricky Pearsall, looks like he's going to have an expanded opportunity with the 49ers offense. The Browns receivers I like, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. They are getting a lot more targets and quality targets with Amari Cooper gone and Jameis Winston in at quarterback. So I'll take either one of those between Moore and Jeudy. Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, deeper dart throws, but Justin Herbert is playing well and is a good quarterback. So you could do worse than a guy like Quentin Johnston. And Rashad Bateman. It continues to run ahead of Deontay Johnson, and it doesn't sound like that's changing anytime soon. So if you start 3 wide receivers and you're looking for some deep wide receiver depth, you could do worse than Bateman attached to an excellent Ravens offense. And finally, at tight end, keep an eye on Jatavian Sanders. He has low-end tight end 1 appeal for the rest of the season after the Panthers come out of their bye week. He is one of my favorite ads at the moment. So if you have an unsettled situation at tight end, keep an eye out for him. Pretty much anybody other than if you have Brock Bowers, if you have George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, or Cade Otton, you're probably good. Other than that, consider Jatavian Sanders. And he shouldn't cost much because he's on his bye this week. All right, everybody. That'll do it for me. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out tonight. Appreciate the support. Special shout out to my members as always. If you guys need anything else, feel free to leave a question in the form of a comment on any videos or streams on the channel, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks, everyone. Best of luck with waivers. Have a good night.